Bernie Sanders is starting this year off with a bang. Ultimately, personally, I thought he had a strong debate performance. Frank Luntz, his polling group shocked Luntz when many of those people, the majority of those people, ended up being Sanders supporters at the end of the night. When I think only 6 started, 14 ended up leaving. He has something about him that is magnetic. He's speaking to things where people listen to him and say, yes, that's rational for society to be organized around the majority of that particular society. The thing is, he had a lot of people who thought it is impossible for him to win. People around that you would talk to, they would say, yeah, I like what he's saying, but he can't win. And you ask, well, why can't he win? And then that gets a little bit more dodgy. In this case, you're going to have an entire Democratic establishment that will be working to stop Sanders behind the scenes. And yeah, at some point, it would have to be that much more overt if Sanders starts to run away with the nomination. Well, when you're looking at the early states, it's very possible that Sanders takes all of the early states across the board. He's in striking distance or leading in the polling. The most recent polling is showing Sanders surging. It is showing Biden support being fuzzy and weak at best. And it is showing Warren continuing her decline downward, downward, downward. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal patron. This content is brought to you by you, so even $1 helps. This room is sparse, so it will be added on, so you will be seeing more.
In tonight's Democracy 2020 report, Elizabeth.
As the days goes on, you will see more in regards to the way this room is set up. One of the things that I made the point about had to do with fundraising. That Sanders being able to bring in over $30 million is indicative of the support. I mean, after all, it takes something to get people to get out, to send hard-earned cash to a particular candidate. And many of the people who are sending this are not necessarily the rich and the wealthy. They're the people who are, for the most part, at the bottom rung of the society. So it's a big deal when they do that. Sanders is running his campaign fully grassroots funded. So again, the fact that he's able to bring in this much cash is a testament to his ability a testament to his support. Warren, who switched over to grassroots funding, also will be held to that. Meaning, she's not doing these big ticket fundraisers. And because she's not doing these big ticket fundraisers, she's tethered her fate to this notion of a fundraising campaign. She wanted to have a parity with Sanders. Well, if she's doing well in the polling, that's fine. If she's not doing well in the polling, then that should show logically in her fundraising numbers. Warren, this go round, was only able to bring in $21 million. Now, beforehand, she was able to bring in, 26 or 25? But that's a dip from where she was before. And to put it in perspective, Sanders brought in $34.5 million. Buttigieg pulled in $24.7 million. And Warren, supposedly a front runner, $21.2 million. That is a dip. And the dip corresponds to some degree with her drop in the polling. This is CBS News poll. This one is just come out. CBS YouGov of the first 2 states, Iowa and New Hampshire. Now, this is what it was in November. Biden 29, Warren 26, Sanders 18, Buttigieg 9. This is what it is now. This is the current month. Sanders 23%, Biden 23%, Buttigieg 23%. Meaning in Iowa, these guys are tied for third. The catch here is Sanders' support is solid and it's remained steady throughout this duration, and he's climbed in this poll. He went from 18% to 13%. Look at Warren. Warren is down to 16% in this poll. what is that, a 10-point drop? She's dropped 10 points in the course of just 1 month. As for New Hampshire, this was New Hampshire last month. Where's my New Hampshire? There we are. Oh, this is Iowa. I'm sorry. This is New Hampshire. Warren, 31%. Biden, 22%. Sanders, 20%. Now, for this month, New Hampshire, 27%. Sanders. Biden, 25%. Warren, 18%. Again, what a difference a month makes. Warren, Jesus Christ, what is that, 22 points? 23 points? That is a tremendous drop. 13 points, I'm sorry, not 23, 13 points. Biden is up 3. Sanders is up 7. But again, this makes sense. Looking at the fundraising and looking at the polling, they correspond to one another. CBS, YouGov poll. One of the most interesting things had to do with excitement. So Sanders supporters were over the moon excited to vote for Bernie Sanders. And that was something that was unrivaled. And again, this is a trend. This is something that you see just across the board in regards to the polling for Sanders. Now, a lot of these people are first-time voters, which makes that excitement thing that much more important. They always say that the first-time voters are not necessarily trustworthy. But if you add that secondary thing of they're energized to vote, then they'll be there. They'll be there. The same thing, however, is not true for Biden. And this is New Hampshire. 65% of Sanders backers called themselves enthusiastic about Sanders. But neither Biden nor Buttigieg backers are as committed to their first choice as Sanders supporters. And past caucus participation is by no means a perfect predictor of future participation for one election cycle to the next. The one thing that Biden gets, he's a safe bet. And again, this is consistent. Candidate described as safe, Biden, 53%. Nobody else is close. Biden's numbers, I keep saying this number, 25, is electability. It's electability. It's not policy. Same thing here, 23, electability. If you can even peel a small portion of that away from Biden, that number implodes. And if you get to a situation where Biden loses these first few states, meaning if Sanders racks up the first few states and South Carolina becomes hazy, ultimately you have a contingent of people who are voting for Biden because they think that Biden is a guy who can win. And because they think Biden is a guy that can win, they're willing to give him their support. That doesn't mean that they'll send him checks. That doesn't mean that they will go out there and caucus for him or knock on doors. None of that. It does mean, however, that they think he's the guy that can hold back the night. And because they believe he's the guy that can hold back the night, he'll get this number, a 23%. But I keep saying electability is a fickle mistress. And if it looks like somebody else is just as electable, then that number tumbles. There was another thing about Warren. The polling mentioned that people find her to be less likely to beat Trump than they did last year, meaning they find her to be a weaker candidate than what they did prior. That's painful. I mean, ultimately, you would want to get stronger. Among those considering Warren, though not necessarily picking her as the first choice, fewer today think she could probably defeat Mr. Trump than they did last fall. For context, none of these candidates convinced the majority of Iowa and New Hampshire voters that he or she is probably going to win. Probably going to win against Trump. Biden, 38%. Sanders, 29%. Warren, 24%. Buttigieg, 21%. I don't think Trump is going to be a weak candidate. I don't think he's going to be easy to beat. and apparently do the people in Iowa. I'm not going to keep this video long. I do like to keep track of polling trends because I think polling trends are important. Ultimately, it's not the individual poll per se, it's kind of the trend of the poll. For example, one of the trends, this election first, especially in Iowa, to some degree is in flux. By the same token, the fact that the people are not hard on the various candidates and the people are harder on Sanders candidates, that's to some degree an advantage. Think back to Nevada caucus. You had Sanders supporters who got in, and because of the weird rules for the Nevada caucus, even though Hillary Clinton got more votes in Nevada, Sanders got more delegates. I hope you remember this. Now, this is entirely and purely an issue of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm gets you out of bed in the morning to make that vote. Rain, shine, it gets you out of bed. The other quantities of saying, yes, I like a particular candidate, that's different. That polling, I would wager, undervalues that quantity to some degree. What that degree is, who knows? We will find out in 30 days or so. And 2020 will be the year where we find out who will be the next president of the United States. Not just that, who will win this primary. Thanks for another great analysis, Jamal. Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Keep in mind, guys, it's not the individual poll. It's always the trends. The trends are the things that are more honest, especially when it's something that you're seeing across the nation. Sanders with Hispanics, Sanders with the younger voters, Biden with the African-American voters, Warren declining rapidly. I mean, 10 points more than double digits in both of these polls over the course of the context of a month. Buttigieg not getting black votes. Those things are trends. Those trends are important. Biden, electability. And again, I make the point, if that falls, if that falters, I keep saying the thing that Sanders must hit Joe Biden on is electability. Hitting them on the Iraq war vote is one thing, that's fine. For the most part, the public, however, seems disinterested in the events that are taking place across the globe, despite the significance of these events. If you want to hit him, and if you want to win it, you gotta hit him in his mass. And in the mass is electability. You need to carve out either votes from the African-American demographic of Joe Biden or the elderly demographic of Joe Biden or the electability issue. One of those things need to fall away. And one of those things, and probably the most straightforward one to hit, is electability. You don't need to take everybody. You don't need to convince everybody. You just need to take a few points. That's all. This race is that close where 1 or 2 points would make the difference in who wins this race. Jesus Christ, can't get to it. New Hampshire, 27, Biden, 25, Sanders, 27. Sanders in the lead. Iowa, Sanders in the lead. Keep it up. Only a few days to Iowa. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.